All right. Well, Intel's not the only company that makes chips, obviously. So last week, there was also a lot of news coming out of Nvidia GTC 2022. Probably you've heard by now, Hopper is getting into the hands of data center operators. It's growing like crazy. DGX BasePOD is a new offering that's based on a variation of the existing DGX pod. Oh, and then Jensen Huang got on stage and said Moore's law is dead. Not stirring the pot or anything, right? Stephen, this is big news for Rundown listeners, and obviously, with us both being out last week, we didn't get a chance to really talk about it as much as we wanted to. But what were your big takeaways from GTC?
Well, usually GTC is a pretty exciting time for those of us in the enterprise space, but I have to say that this GTC was really dominated by more of the client side of things. So, that being said, let's focus on what they did say about the enterprise. Now, first off, Moore's Law is, I don't know, resting, pining for the fjords. It ain't dead. But that being said, it's different, and maybe it never was alive to begin with. What we're seeing, though, is NVIDIA really stepping on the gas here in terms of what they're able to produce. Now, the first thing that I want to focus on is Hopper. So, as you mentioned, Hopper is real. Hopper is entering production. Again, that was probably the most important announcement at GTC was that Hopper is shipping and it's going to be everywhere. We've also got our first look, thanks to ML Commons, ML Perf, at the performance of Hopper, and it is amazing. In fact, the H100 looks like it can be as much as 5 times faster than the A100 in some AI and ML benchmarks. And frankly, that's not all that surprising because it looked great on paper, but you just never know until the rubber meets the road. Well, the rubber's meeting the road. These things are in the hands of cloud providers now and are going to be rolling out basically for the rest of the year. And it looks like a tremendous offering. Going with Hopper is NVIDIA's Grace. Now, remember, this is the ARM based CPU that can join Hopper in an NVLink fabric and give Hopper the kind of CPU and IO and memory and storage that it needs to keep it fed. For a long time, this kind of thing was provided by an Intel or an AMD CPU running x86 instructions. Well, now with Grace, which it turns out is run on ARM's latest Neoverse V2 cores, we're going to be able to feed the Hopper with ARM CPUs that come from NVIDIA. This is a major change because, again, NVIDIA has been a platform company that has partnered with AMD and Intel for a long, long time. And Grace and Hopper look so compelling that I think there's a good chance that in 2023, the story may be why would somebody choose a Xeon or even an Epic to go with Hopper when Grace provides better performance and better support? So that's all coming, and that's all been confirmed from NVIDIA. Way to go, guys. Nice, nice job. Another thing that was important, as you mentioned, was this whole idea of a base pod. Now, the base pod is not next generation stuff. It's an evolution of the current DGX, EGX reference architecture model. But what it does is it combines DGX with an A100, the previous generation, well, which is still awesome, by the way, with storage and networking from third parties. And the storage companies that are signing up are friends of Field A and companies that we frequently talk about here on the rundown. So companies like Weka, which has a really tremendous scalable storage offering combined with DGX BasePOD, DDN, which has focused quite a lot on artificial intelligence, um, Dell, NetApp, Pure Storage, and of course Vast Data, which is really coming on strong. All of these systems are really, really excellent systems. You know, the NetApp system with ONTAP is a nice counterpoint to what they've been doing with the cloud. Pure Storage as well is really killing it in the data center. They're coming on strong in the cloud, and then here they are with a DGX BasePOD solution. And as I mentioned, Vast Data is really, really coming on strong as well. So the BasePOD is a great scalable, integrated NVIDIA-based solution for somebody who's trying to implement these things in the data center. Another thing that we saw at the keynote, of course, is a hint at what comes next. So there was a lot of talk about Lovelace, which is, well, the more graphical partner of Hopper. In other words, take the just like Hopper's the next generation for AI and ML and other kind of offload compute workloads. Lovelace is really focused around more traditional GPU workloads, and it looks just as good and just as much of an advancement. And there's been a lot of suggestion that there's going to be a companion ARM server. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But overall, I think that the Lovelace architecture is maybe less relevant for the enterprise, but still very, very strong. So essentially, that's what we saw with GTC this year. Like I said, we saw a lot more focus on GPU, but we did get the big news that Hopper is shipping, and of course the DGX BasePOD. But really, I think that the takeaway from this is sort of the counterpoint between AMD, Nvidia, and Intel, especially in the data center market. All of them are really trying to do things. They're really trying to do things differently. Intel's really leaning into CXL. Nvidia's really leaning into their proprietary NVLink, but nobody's closing the door on anyone. And I think that really 2023 is going to be an exciting year as a lot of this stuff hits the market.
Yeah, I felt like that they were really heavily biased towards some of the new GPUs that they're offering. But of course, considering everything that's been changing in the GPU market recently, I think that was probably the news that everybody wanted to hear. And then, we heard like the Thor chip, which is going to be kind of integrated into imaging sensors and things like that. And then we heard about Omniverse Cloud, which is essentially tying all of these things together and putting it in an as a service offering that NVIDIA is like, hey, you want to build these virtual worlds? I don't know why, but we'll sell you the stuff to do it. But I think that it's interesting that that's kind of where Nvidia is positioning themselves. They're trying to offer a breadth of things that leverage the technologies that they've been so good at, and trying to basically make it so that you want to go to Nvidia for everything to start off with. Obviously we didn't get a lot of talk about DPUs. We didn't get a lot of talk about some of the other enterprise things that we talk about here on the rundown. But I think that it's all going to be integrated together as we move forward, because Nvidia is going to try to position this tiered system of being able to offer chips that will do pretty much whatever you want, whether you want to rent it from them to build it or buy it from them to put in your own data center. And maybe that gives us a third entrant into that market. As we talked about, Intel will get better when AMD, because they've acknowledged that AMD is kind of in the lead. So now they have a way to play. But now we have this third entrant in Nvidia saying, well, why are we building it the way that you guys are building against each other? Why don't we just do it this way with a lot of ARM processors and a lot of distributed offerings? And of course, those monster Nvidia GPUs that they're so known for. Maybe it's a completely different way to look at things. And there was even a lot of talk around Ampere, which we've discussed quite a bit, because if ARM does take over the data center, that's really bad news for companies like Intel, but it's really great news for companies like Nvidia, who have effectively bet the farm on ARM architecture. So it's exciting again. Like think about the number of stories that we've been talking about over the last few weeks that involve Nvidia, Intel, ARM, architecture discussions. Like have you remembered a time when this was that exciting? Like, how far back do you have to go? Like Cyrix and the faux 586 chips. I mean, I can't wait to see where this goes. Now, to be completely fair, maybe Jensen Huang needs to dial back the rhetoric on Moore's law being dead, because we're just finding new ways to reinterpret Moore's law. And that's just the way that things are going to be for the foreseeable future, until we can get to technologies like silicon photonics, which remove the last barriers around heat and things like that. But again, when you're doing a lot of research and you're trying to figure those things out and you're making leaps and bounds as it goes along, I mean, we're right back where we started, with exciting new technologies that are taking over the industry and hopefully making things a little bit easier for us, whether it's our home PCs, GPUs, or in the enterprise where we're trying to build some technologies. And quite honestly, it warms my heart to see that Nvidia has embraced some of the past and started naming a lot of their products after some of the pioneering women in technology in the early computing days. So, I'll buy it just for the name alone.